From July 8th to July 28th, 2014, 1,148 Palestinians and 56 Israeli lives were lost from one of many conflicts that occur between the two. The same pain is felt when a Palestinian mother loses her child and when an Israeli mother loses hers. For years since its start in 1948, many presidents and world leaders have come together to try and solve this issue but have been unsuccessful. I was fortunate enough to visit both states, and these are the realities that I witnessed. When I first arrived into Tel Aviv, I was greeted by military personnel because I had just landed on an Israeli military base. I entered the terminal and was introduced to Israel's hospitality. I was served orange juice and welcomed to the country. After I received my visa, I asked the young lady for directions to my hotel. I then left the base and felt like I had just entered the set of a Hollywood film. I saw palm trees, people running on the beaches, volleyball games being played, and people overall enjoying what seemed to be a great quality of life. I was shocked, since I hear of the fighting that constantly takes place. I called upon a taxi and was greeted with a shalom, which is the Hebrew greeting with its definition of peace. The Palestinians or the Islamic greeting is salam, which also means peace. The taxi driver spoke English to me and asked me about my journey from Chicago. I was amazed at how well he knew the streets of Chicago better than me. I was aware that Chicago did have a large Jewish community, but I learned that many of his family members still reside in Chicago. It's a very small world. I then arrived at my hotel and immediately saw a group of teenagers in what was a beautiful community park. These parks were everywhere in Israel. This one had several basketball courts and a turf soccer field, along with a skate park, outdoor gym equipment, which was free for anybody to use, and it even had a Starbucks located in the center of the park. I asked the teenagers who were playing basketball if I could play, and I was able to join the game of basketball. After we finished the game, the teenager asked me what America was like, and we talked about the NBA because they're very fascinated about basketball. I asked if they had ever been to America and how well they spoke English, in which they replied, no, we just are taught English in school. You see, Israel ranks 12th out of 98 nations in education according to CEO World. Palestine doesn't even rank. They do, however, rank their universities. Najah National University, which is a university located in the West Bank, ranks 1,537th worldwide, and while the University of Gaza, located in the Gaza Strip, ranks 2,380th worldwide. The next morning, I made my embark into the West Bank. I entered Kalandia refugee camp, which is the largest in the West Bank. I felt like I traveled halfway across the world, and I had only crossed into the wall. There were many rundown and old homes and people living out of tents. Every street I turned, I saw a poster of a Palestinian with a young male's picture, and across the word Shaheed was written, which translates to martyr in English. Even though Palestinian poverty rate is between 29 and 35%, it feels like there's not much separating those living above the poverty line. I entered a taxi, and the gentleman didn't know English at all except a couple simple words such as hello or how are you. I realized this was the majority of people in Palestine. Israel ranks very high on the Human Development Index. It ranks 22 out of 189 nations, while Palestine ranks 119th out of those same 189. I also found a court to play in Karendia, except this one was on an old broken parking lot, and the basketball hoop was made from limited resources and was extremely run down. There were about 30 kids waiting on this basketball court just to play. Nonetheless, they were all happy and they didn't mind waiting to play. This was the norm in Palestine. I remember crossing back into Israel, looking at this massive wall that separates the two, and thinking maybe the homeless people up against the wall were trying to gain sympathy from Israel, because 2.5 million Palestinians are in need of humanitarian assistance, and 25 of Palestinians cannot afford simple health care. The Israeli Cancer Treatment Center, which offers some of the world's most advanced treatment, is only 45 minutes from the refugee camp. It amazed me. Israel and Palestine was like day and night. I do hope one day the fighting can stop and both groups can unite into one peaceful country. These are just some of the details that I witnessed on my embark to Israel and Palestine. For years, I have always asked myself why a group of people with more similarities than differences have fought for so hard and for so long. Why are two groups of people who are taught to respect and live out your life as an honest human and worshiper of God be so violent and develop such a hate for another group of human beings, all while being religious? The simple answer to that question is a piece of land. But the answer, in my opinion, to this problem has been staring the world in the face, and we've always chosen to overlook it. The real problem is Israelis and Palestinians are very, very prideful people. Most hate the other side for reasons that they've only heard about or were taught, but have never really experienced. We must remove the labels and borders, meaning don't label someone an Israeli or a Palestinian. Instead, realize both groups, respect both religions. Judaism, simplified, is a religion and a belief of one God who revealed himself to prophets like Abraham and Moses. Islam, simplified, is also the belief of one God who revealed himself to prophets like Abraham, Moses, and his final messenger, Muhammad. Both religions have a belief of doing well, respecting others, worshiping God, and being granted into his garden of heaven. Back when I played basketball with both groups, I was able to ask both groups, can you guys coexist with the other side and do simple things like play a game of basketball? I was surprised when both had similar answers. They both wanted that more than anything. Jews and Muslims have lived in modern-day Israel and Palestine for thousands of years. It wasn't until the dividing and labeling of two sides that tensions have rose and are yet to fall. My solution to this fighting is to put it in the history books and leave it there, and exist as one country. Going back to the taxi drivers that I mentioned earlier on my embark. You see, although both men lived on opposite sides of the wall, both men wanted the same thing, and that was to make a living to support their families, and both worked really hard at it. The majority of people living in these areas just wanted the same thing as these taxi drivers: to work, make an honest living, and support a family, raise a family. I was really disappointed at how a stubborn government can be okay with all the negative effect on innocent men and women. Enough is enough. Israel or Palestine, who cares what it is called? These two beautiful religions and cultures are very similar. Why not have synagogues and mosques in the same buildings but separate floors? Or next to each other? Why not erase the flags and make one new flag that can symbolize one country, rather than two states at a war? The two-state solution is almost impossible. It has failed every single time it has been offered or proposed. Israel and Palestine have the potential of being one of the most advanced and greatest countries if they were to unite. In my eyes, they are already one people. I have interacted with both sides and have yet to really sort out a difference between the two. At the end of the day, we are all human beings. Why not call it God's land rather than Israel or Palestine? I myself am of Palestinian descent, but when asked where I'm from, I don't say Palestine and I don't say Israel. I say Jerusalem, and I have yet to have conflict with that answer. Because it is the labeling of both sides that costs lives, destroys buildings, destroys the land, and eliminates all the resources. So put the fighting to the side, put it behind you, leave it there, and unite as one land, one people, one unity. Thank you.